Welcome, welcome, welcome to Open Conversations with International Coaches. There's four of us from sort of around the world, four different geographical locations. This is the 16th of November, 2023. What a wonderful time it is. What a wonderful period of history. We were just talking about history before we get into this, and we're looking at a topic this week called experimentation. Simple concept that we talk about a lot. We use that word, experiments, experimenting, but we're going to have a different look at it as it applies to coaching today. So first of all, I want to go around and get everybody introduced. Cass, you're right above me in my view of the screen. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Cass J. Henry. I'm from Ontario, Canada, and I'm a holistic life mentor. I'm interested in the bigger picture of what makes you, the mind, body, spirit. I work with my clients when they feel stuck. They're looking to overcome self-doubt and manifest their dreams. And I'm here to give them a new, different perspective. I work with them virtually and in person. And if you want to see if this could be a good fit, you can find me on catastrophe.com.
Awesome. And Shelly Ann, you're next. We're going counterclockwise around my circle.
Yeah, now I have to think what that. Yeah. Hi, I'm Shelly-Ann Edwards-Barron, a gratitude guide and habit coach from Trinidad and Tobago. I help people identify and establish keystone habits that lead them to successfully achieving their goals, all starting with that daily habit of gratitude. I work with professionals who feel like they're not making progress, even though they're exhausted from working hard. They know what they want, but they just can't seem to get it together or remain consistent in heading toward it. So I show them how to say it right by making language and self-talk empowering, how to say it loud by making gratitude tangible and active, and how to say it always by establishing a daily habit of gratitude. And this is what I call the gratitude strategy, and it gives them a foundation to build other habits that bring them the freedom and joy they're looking for. So if you're feeling frustrated and stuck and like you've tried everything but nothing seems to work, check out my channel, a YouTube channel, Getting It Done with Gratitude, for weekly discussions on how you can use gratitude to help you become consistent. Then you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook so I can help you sort through the noise and get back on track with being who you really want to be.
Excellent. And Gerald, you're next.
Hi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are at this current time in life. I hope you're happy. Basically, my name is Gerald Alexander, and I'm here in Scotland. And that place where the Braveheart movie says you can take her life, but you'll never take her freedom. And it's all about what are you doing with your life and what would you like to be doing with your life. I like to give people like a sense of direction and get them moving toward whatever would make them happy, because that's how our success in life is measured, how we achieve the happiness in the life that we're gifted with through our choices. So, and just like Cass, it's helping people who are mostly stuck in their own head, and a lot of people are ever since the COVID-19. So that's what we're all here to help people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Love it. My name is Stephen B. Henry. My friends call me Steve, and you can too. I'm a multi-niche creative, a digital content creator, an online present consultant, a business success guide, and a personal development mentor. That's a lot of stuff, but I've been around a long time and I've done a lot of things. If you're stuck and you're trying to do something, I've probably done it before or something similar, and I can get into it with you and help you move forward. I work with those wanting to start or to expand an online business, helping them get unstuck in both their business and their personal lives and move forward on their journey of success. I'm a Canadian expat currently living in the US, and you can find me at stephenbhenry.com. So, with that said, I'm going to turn it back to Cass first. You said you had something you wanted to share to kick this off. Take it away.
Sure. So I'll just start with this. Experimentation is the action or process of trying out new ideas, methods, or activities. And while I was looking into this, I came across a lovely quote in an article by Joel Bogas, who is another coach. He also does podcasts, and I believe he's an author. And this is how it reads: experimentation equals liberation. What if you assumed as a rule that most things work out in the end, and the things that don't aren't the catastrophes that you imagine them to be? What if you chose to see each situation for what it really is, a chance to learn, grow, and develop your voice? By giving yourself permission to experiment and try on new things from a different perspective, you free yourself from the fear of failure and expectation of measuring up. It's okay if your experiment doesn't work out the way you planned, or if it doesn't follow a nice, neat sequential order. Original ideas rarely do. Testing an idea's merit alongside your own values and principles and outside of any box is far more valuable. And I really love the way that just sums that up.
That is awesome. I love it too.
Yeah.
It really did sum it up.
I would say that, no, summing that up would be life is a choice, and it's up to us. How we view it. Everything, once again, as usual, is all kind of through into that, our attitude, what our expectations are, whether we think we can, whether we think we can, is it going to, is good or bad, because we're self-fulfilling prophecies, so it's the choices and how we choose, how to look at things. And it's going for it, making the most of our lives, having a sense of direction. What do we want?
Yeah. And then even going after what we want, sometimes we might think, lots of coaches talk about plans and creating plans and having that vision and your end goal and so on. And sometimes people get into the notion that once they create the plan and they start working on the plan, then the plan is supposed to unfold in this set particular way. And that once we create a plan, that is the plan and the only plan that's going to work. But experimentation says otherwise, because we don't know what we're going to meet, what we're going to expect. And I think the word experimentation came up in our last conversation when we were talking about sometimes we don't even know what we want, and we don't know what life has to offer unless we're going out there and experimenting and trying out new things. And experimentation is a big deal when it comes to habit coaching. So much so that your first venture into anything is called an experiment. So after you work out the habit that you want to implement and you decide on schedules and everything, all of that, you set an experimentation time, whether it's a week or 2 weeks or a couple of days, you set a time to experiment where you test it out. So you test out your new plan and you test out to see what works and what doesn't work. And then you come back and you look at the data and you make changes if necessary. And then you go again and you run another experiment. And you keep doing that until you find one that works for you. And then you can establish that as a habit if you choose. So the real habit is experimentation.
Yeah. I found three different pseudo definitions that explained what experimentation was in its relationship to coaching, and you guys have really kind of touched on all of them in a way. I'll share them here. Experimentation is the intentional and systematic process of trying out new approaches, behaviors, or strategies to achieve specific goals or overcome challenges. In relation to coaching, it is encouraging clients to step out of their comfort zones, explore different perspectives, and test alternative ways of thinking or acting. And then thirdly, it is a dynamic and interactive aspect of coaching that fosters learning, self-discovery, and personal growth. And that really was just three synthesized phrases that you guys all just shared. It's amazing. I did research on my own and came up with the same three things. The strength of that, the underscoring of those things says that we're probably on the right track.
Could I just say, Steve, at this point, like jumping in, number two, and what was I was feeling before you read those three was the benefits of having a coach, because those we don't have the time to make all the experiments, by yourself, to have all those experiences and to congest and make a decision. Was it a good experience? Was it a bad experience? Whereas, having a coach is someone who's probably been there, done that, or learned from somebody else who's been there and done that. And to be able to, like compress the time for us to go on with our life and achieve more of what we want is the huge benefits having a role model and choosing a particular coach that's going to help you to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah, the whole process of experimenting can be overwhelming. We may think back to the scientific method in a science class in high school or something, and that is the step-by-step process, but it's not the application to what we do in coaching, and so that process can become truly overwhelming for somebody who isn't doing it all the time. And you're right, Gerald. Having a coach, even newer coaches having a coach is a good idea, so that there's somebody with the experience that can guide them on that journey of their own as they are trying to do all of these things they need to do. We worked with a coach in this group at one point, in another incarnation, who talked about the fact that she had had some expensive coaches. She'd paid a lot of money for them to coach her, and she found they could tell her all of the what she needed to do, but they couldn't tell her the how to do it. And so she was struggling and foundering, trying to deal with the what without the how. And the how is what comes out of good experimentation. So, it's necessary. And a good coach isn't just going to leave their charge out there to figure it out on their own. A good coach is going to guide them. I think it's a important part.
Well, once again, there, Steve, like what you just said there about guiding them, condensing that down to the what and the why and the how is basically not giving people a sense of direction, because we're living in phenomenal times, but we're just it's never been easier to get answers, get results, to learn a new skill. It's pretty much at our fingertips. But we can be overwhelmed very easily, just like you said.
Yeah. Cass, you had something there?
You were going to say something.
Yeah, I was actually going to put Shelly-Ann on the spot. I've noticed frequently when we bring up our topics, you're very good at coming up with examples. And I wondered if you could give us a little bit of an example about experimentation.
Experimentation with coaching, yes, because I actually experimented with that recently. With the program, the coaching program that I recently completed, we were given templates to go through with the client, where we would identify different, I guess, what's the word? Activities, behaviors, what existed in the environment, whether it's a physical environment or social environment, and related to the habit that they're trying to create. So let's say you want to. Well, one of the things that I'll give you a personal example I did with one of my clients. She was a workaholic, like me, so we kind of really clicked when we started engaging. And so her first thought when she got up in the morning, all about work, all through the day about work. When she got home at night, brought home the company laptop, back to work. And so her goal was to start reclaiming her time for herself and start loving herself more. So what we tried a few things. And so with the experimentation, our first experiment was to reclaim 10 minutes of the day for herself. And so we sat down and we went through what a typical day was like, and we identified a period in the day when she's most likely to be able to reclaim this 10 minutes. And then we worked through some strategies that she could implement if there were interruptions. And so when you're running an experiment, you're looking at it from an objective view before you actually implement anything. So you're looking at this is what I want, and you outline it and detail it down to the time and the actual behavior. And then you brainstorm what could interrupt me, what could stop me from doing this thing that I want to do. And you create systems and activities and responses. So for her, the time that she chose was roughly about in the middle of the day. And so at work, there were impromptu meetings. Hey, we want to have a meeting. Can you come? Can you do this for me? So lots of different interruptions. We brainstormed those and we created a sentence or a statement in response for each of them. So let's say she decided she's going to take 10 minutes and we're starting with 10. And somebody came and said, hey, we want to have a meeting. We're starting at and give the time that she's supposed to be reclaiming. One of her responses would be, yes, I'll be there. Can I have a few minutes, please? So give me 10 minutes and I'll be there. And so we wrote those down so that there's less guessing. When the situation came up, she was prepared and she had her responses. And so we set a time frame for the experiment. So we'll do this experiment for 1 week and then report back. We discussed what happened, were there any interruptions, how she dealt with them, how many interruptions there were over the course of the week, and whether the time worked that was originally selected. Do we need to shift? Can we add more minutes to the 10 minutes in this time, or do we stick with it again and run another experiment to make sure that it's still working under different circumstances, like going on vacation or, over the weekend and different things? So that's as practical as I could give you an example with running an experiment.
That was
There's
really
a
wonderful. Thank you. That's a
yeah,
great example.
number of key elements in there that stood out, and one that I think excels is you said write it down.
Oh,
Do
yes.
those things and write it down. And
Mm.
I think that's an area that so many people overlook at their peril. Writing it down is such a powerful thing, and it brings into play so many areas that we don't even consciously think about. But the idea of writing it down, now many of us are using some form of typing, whether it's thumbs on a small device or touch typing or even hunt and peck on a full size keyboard. We do that rather than longhand writing, and longhand writing is actually better, but we may not do that because we're in the digital world. but the process of putting it down, on digital or on paper, actually brings together some things, because most of us, when we write something, first of all, we have to think about it in conceptual form. Then we convert it to words. Thoughts and words are separate things. We don't really think in words. We may think we think in words, but there's actually a thought process behind it that then gets dumped into the words. And that's where some of us pick it up in our conscious mind. But we have to convert it to words. So that's a process.
Mm-hmm.
Then we take those words And to write them down on a paper or to type them, however we're doing it, we have to take it from the center of the brain into the mechanical control center of the brain that handles the physical processes that we learned. Writing with a stylus is not an innate, natural, deal. It's not something we do. Typing or thumbing is not something we naturally do. We learn those processes. They're not intuitive. I once had a person teaching about the the animated screen, the mouse and the pointer and the visual representations on a Windows or a Mac, or this was in particularly an Acorn computer screen, and they insisted that the use of the mouse was natural, was innate, and that we simply, the idea of that screen, that whole process of a window environment was just natural for us, and that's why it was so easy to learn. And I've spoken to a lot of people who don't say it's easy to learn, especially early on in the early days of these window environments. And I think the best example of that was in one of the Star Trek movies, when they came back in time to get a certain substance that they needed. Scotty was talking to the computer, and he said, "Computer, do so and so." And of course, they were in the 1980s or 1990s, and the person there said, "No, here, use this." And I don't know if I can get it into my camera view, but use this. And so Scotty said, "Oh, okay, computer, please do whatever." And so he talked into it as if it was a microphone, because that was intuitive for him. So these are the things happen. So writing, you have to understand that writing or typing or thumbing is not an intuitive process. So we have to consciously transfer the speech to that mechanical process. Then when we write it down or type it, most of us read what we're writing. Now, we don't read it well because we can't spot our own typos and all those other things that happen, but we actually read as we're writing. We read the words that we think we're writing. And so there's an outbound process and there's an inbound process.
Happening at the same time.
At the same time, yes, so important. And all of this happens by writing it down. The subconscious mind then takes everything that we read back in and implements it for us. So the very things that we're writing down to guide us in our process is already working in the subconscious mind before we even begin. Wow.
Yeah.
Experimenting is multifaceted.
And then the documentation as well. So we're writing the plan out, and we're writing the various steps in the plan and the, counteractions and all those things. But then we're documenting as we go as well. So, and it doesn't have to be, extensive, because in the situation that I shared, what I did was, let's say her time was 11 o'clock, and so I would message her at 12 and say, how did it go? Send her a WhatsApp message, and then she would respond. And that's our documentation. So, there's no worksheet that you have to sit down and go through. It's not tedious at all, but you are documenting. So it'll probably take her like maybe 30 seconds to a minute to respond, to say, I will say one interruption, but I used my sentence, and we move on. And I say, awesome, see you again tomorrow, check in, and that's how it went. And so the documentation of the process made it more intentional, and therefore much more likely to A, work out, and B, be implemented as a habit. But just in case something didn't work out, let's say, it didn't happen today because I had a course today. And so that time I wasn't at my desk. I was actually in a whole other location doing something else. How did you deal with that? Well, I shifted it to the later part of the evening. I made an adjustment. So then we have a new point to add to the experiment. When things don't go according to plan, do you eliminate it or do you reschedule it within the same day? That's another point. So we didn't come up with that at the beginning, but then the experiment showed us that these things can happen.
We have a need.
And
Yeah.
so, yep,
And that's what people call plan B, plan
yeah,
C. We deal with it every day. It's not some alien thing that we have to learn. We're already kind of doing it in the things that we do. But the little extra steps of formalizing it makes it more real, makes it more habitual, and engages the subconscious mind in a very positive way rather than haphazardly doing it. Yeah, it's
It
process.
takes big concepts that you might feel anxious about and makes them manageable. So, what would
absolutely.
happen if you treated the actions of your fear as an experiment? How can you take something like that and turn it into an experimentation that you can work with rather than something that is all consuming, all encompassing, doesn't have any of those prepared possible sentences or, whatever you're going to do to go back to dealing with that fear. Sorry, Gerald, I think I cut you off.
No, so that was powerful what you just said there, by the way, about such a big picture and the anxiety getting involved. You see how other things get involved while we're doing these procedures, and plus when we're typing in, like with our thumbs or our fingers, it's so much easier to get distracted. Something else could ping up a Facebook message for a start, on the machinery that we're working on. Whereas I recently found out that people that are taking notes on their phone or on their laptop or whatever, typing it in, there's a huge difference between them and the students that are still writing it down. Because as Steve was just touching on there, basically we think in pictures in our mind. So we are like got to talk about simultaneously, things going on, Shelley Ann, like you said. We've got to think, what does that picture look like to us? What does that picture mean to us? So then we're transferring it into the words, and then the words are becoming the grammar that we're trying to explain it to you so that you see that same picture. And then we're reading it back to ourselves. Is this the way? Am I telling this correctly? So that person sees what I'm seeing in my head, and then once you've seen it in your head, your subconscious mind's going, okay, whereas I'll remember that for the test day,
And it's interesting that you said that we think in pictures. Quite a lot of us do. What those pictures look like differs between persons. So some people have, these hyper realistic images. Some people have the stick figure images, and some people have no images at all. Just a vague idea of what that picture could be and should be in their own estimation. And so understanding that variation in being able to put it down on paper, this is the absolute reason that we've all agreed that putting it down makes a difference. And one of the reasons that handwriting is very different from typing is the speed at which the activity happens. Because when you're typing and you're accustomed to typing, you can type. My typing speed is about, so the last time I tested was a long time ago, but right now I would estimate it's about 80 words a minute with about one or two errors that I would need to go back and fix. So when I'm typing, I can type something, an entire paragraph with accuracy and not know what I typed because I'm not thinking about it. It's happening so quickly. But when I'm writing, because of the speed at which I write, I get more time to think about what I'm writing and forming the letters and all those things. With the typing, I just tap and I get a G. I tap and I get an R and an A, and I tap it out really quickly. But with handwriting, I have to form each letter manually and form each word manually. And that slows me down for me to focus more on what I'm writing. And then we get that, what they call the hand-eye coordination with thinking included. And that's really what makes it so much more powerful when you write things down, handwriting.
Yes, because the key is what you're thinking about while you're typing it is where is the R? Where is the G? Not what you're thinking about. You're thinking
Yeah,
about how am I going to put this on the paper?
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, there's two ways of typing, at least two that I know of. There could be more, but one is to type letters, and that's what most high-speed typists do. They've been taught how to type letters, not words, and that's the other way is to type words. I'm a little slower in typing. I used to be around when I was in high school and taking typing. I think I achieved around 92 or 95 words per minute. I probably do about 70 to 75 now. But I learned from an instructor who taught typing words. We learned letters and all, ASDF, JKL, semicolon, all of that stuff that you learn in typing class or keyboarding, they call it now. But he taught us to think the words that we're typing. Let our finger memory find the letters. If you learn to touch type properly, your fingers will find the letters for you. You read the words on the page as you're typing the letters for them in two separate processes. And that way you actually take in what you're typing as you're typing it. And that is a little more akin to writing, but writing is even slower and does even better. Most people who write think in words as they write. Dear Mary, hi, how are you today? I am fine. And so you're writing what you're thinking of as the words. But in typing, it's HIMARY, and you're going right
Yeah,
through
tap,
as
tap, tap,
well.
tap, tap. Full
Exactly.
stop.
Yep. And so that's why we lose a little bit. If you don't learn the typing in words concept and be able to separate those two processes, then typing is a terrible way to learn things as you're typing them. Whereas
Mhm.
writing, that's why we make notes in class. That's why they want you, as Gerald said, the ones who take them in longhand actually gain more from them because that process is more internalized.
I also noticed, like with Shelley Ann and Steve, what you both just said there. I noticed how, like, you used to be able to type more letters than Shelley Ann, but now you can. But Shelley Ann makes less mistakes than you do. So
Mhm.
all these, yeah, all these little things that are distractions, and it really is. And then while the two of you were talking, I'm thinking, what is it like when somebody looks up to the left, they're trying to think, or try to analyze or try to get that picture so they can get it across a lot clearer. Whereas when you're typing or even writing, you know, you're losing that ability to look at the picture again, to analyze it and break it down more. It's just all about um, experimenting. What is the
Yeah,
message? What's the
exactly.
message I want
Um,
to get across here, and what's the best way to go about it?
Yeah, I just wanted to say we have a comment and I wanted to read it out because it's relating directly to what we're talking about, handwriting. So I'm not seeing the name, so it's probably not in my group. It's probably one of you guys' comments. I love writing by hand for the first draft of just about everything. And I also love sending out handwritten notes and cards. Receiving handwritten things is a blessing for the sender and receiver. And that last line is what I really wanted to highlight. And thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Um, Catherine Lang, thank you. That last line is absolutely perfect following on to what we were just saying. The reason it feels so much like a blessing to both sender and receiver, not just the receiver, but the sender as well, is because of the time that it takes. And we know how precious time is. And when we spend that time with that intentional, deliberate action, it means so much. It really, really does.
Yeah. And hi, Catherine. Good to see you. Catherine, by the way, is a prolific author. You might want to find her. She's in the With Stephen B. Henry group, is where her comment is. And you might want to find her website and sign up for her mailing list. She puts out some amazing pieces that I get motivated by on a regular basis. And she has an interesting, somewhat tongue-in-cheek way of looking at things that, what do you call it? Snarky rainbows, I think was the term. So it's a kind of a, Led Zeppelin, Inagata Devita type of double entendre on things that really gets you thinking and it gets me motivated anyway. So it's ideal. So thanks for dropping by. Glad to see you and everybody else that's out there today too, or through the magic of replays. Some
Yeah,
wonderful things.
so she just explained snarky rainbows, hope with a dash of twisted encouragement.
I love
Love
it.
it.
I will definitely be
So
looking
good.
for that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wanted to zoom in on a piece of that quote that I had started off with. And what if you assumed as a rule that most things work out in the end and the things that don't aren't the catastrophes? It's hard for me to say that because I'm so used to saying catastrophe, that you imagine them to be. And this brings up the idea of resilience and how when you're doing experimentations, you there are going to be failures or there are going to be bumps in the road, and you have to figure out how to keep going and figure out what your response to those failures or bumps are. And I mean, I'm a little failure is a hard word. I mean, there are failures, but I think that they're always an opportunity to grow and learn from them. And that's how you start building that resilience, so that when something happens, you don't feel like, oh my gosh, my whole world is going to fall apart because this didn't work. You start to feel like, no, wait, I have some tools that I've used previously, and in this experiment, I can pull them out and see how they work and see how they fit. And so experimentation is definitely one of those ways that helps people be able to be resilient.
Yeah, and I think when you actually look at the situation as an experiment, you're more likely to pull your toolbox than to give up, because if it's an experiment, you're going to expect at some point, things mightn't work. So you have your toolbox and you're prepared because it's an experiment, and you're prepared to tinker and, turn knobs and twist things because it's an experiment. But if you go into it thinking, I'm going to do this and get it done, and just leave it at that, when things start to twist and turn, the toolbox isn't going to be nearby because you're not prepared, because it wasn't an experiment. And I think just shifting your thinking toward, this is an experiment, let me see how it goes. If things don't quite work out, I have this tool, I have that, let me bring it here, put it close by so that I have it to hand when I need it.
There are two amazing things that coaches work with on a regular basis. I think every coach that I have ever talked to talks about these two areas. Both good coaches and less performing coaches all speak about the same things: goal setting and planning. Right? Those are naturals for coaches: goal setting and planning, and they can be very good at that. But if you add experimentation into that mix, instead of just setting hard and fast goals or creating hard and fast plans, and plans can be the whole spectrum of strategies and all the various things that go into them. So, from initial goal setting all the way through planning, you can cover an enormous amount of things. But when you add experimentation into that mix as part of the process of getting there from here, you then find the better choices, the better ways, instead of just jumping in with the old tried and true. What worked for me when I was here, when I was doing this kind of thing, I did it this way. So now I can come here and teach you how to do it this way. But if we actually incorporate experimentation into the process before we lock it down, we can find for us in the current situation, the mentor and mentee working together, that's a new dynamic approach to things, different than any other pair of people or any other coach with that same client. And so quite often I work with clients who have come to me after being with other coaches, and they're set in certain ways with that coach. But when you can get into the process and add in experimentation, taking looks and trials and seeing how these things work, because not everything is one way cut and dried for everybody. There are so many ways to do things and so many directions to get there from here. I can leave this city 7 or 8 major ways and 2 or 3 dozen minor ways, and I can take any one of them to get to any place in the world I want to go to. But there are more effective, more efficient ways. When I first came to this city, I came into this city to get to where I am right now, a less than perfect way. I passed by 2 better ways, but I didn't know them. But after being in this city for days, weeks, whatever, I began experimenting and checking out different roads and where they went and how they connected. And now you want to get somewhere from here, or you want to come here from somewhere, I can tell you the best way to go because I've learned them through experimentation.
The best way, if your goal is the same, right? If that efficiency is what you're looking for, but maybe you're looking for the best way to see all the cows on the road, or on the route rather, or the best way to see all the cornfields on the way. And so you're not actually looking for that efficiency, and that's what your coach is maybe saying. Oh, I've got this efficiency, and so you're like, yeah, that's what I want. And you do your experimentation, and then while you're in your experiment, you realize, wait, that isn't what I wanted. I have a different goal in mind, and now we can redirect. And experimentation is the thing that shows you.
Yes.
You get to learn about yourself more while you're doing experimentation. You get more information about the world and yourself in that experience.
And that's where the documentation and the feedback comes in to be able to determine exactly what you said. Gerald, you talked last week about in the topic we were into there, but you talked about knowing what you want and how most people think they know what they want, but don't really know what they want. And that, again, as Cass is sharing there, is where experimentation comes into the process. I forget exactly how you phrased it last week, but that was, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but that was some, pretty insightful process that you brought to the fore. You shared in the picture that we need to understand what it is we really want.
Yeah, let me interject then. So for those who missed last week, you can find it on YouTube. The YouTube channel is Open Conversations with International Coaches. You can also find it in Stephen's group with Stephen B. Henry. And Cass, what's the name of your group?
I have it memorized as, but it's mindfulness, meditation, motivation, momentum, meetups, and more.
Awesome.
It's easier just to find me.
Yeah. So look for Cass.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so it's streamed in several different places. Gerald, in your group?
Pretty much like I'll just direct them to my website, www.exquisite-lifestyles.co.uk, and exquisite is spelled XQISIT. And that's because, like we're all different. It's not the normal way, and being ourselves. And
Yeah.
going back to answering, like what Steve was talking about there, what was that again about having a sense of direction in our everything's really an experiment. And the example that you gave, Cass, about driving, to see the cows. But then you've got to remember too that when was the last time you you took that drive, and do you even remember it? Because you got to remember that goes into the subconscious mind, and people get from A to B once they know the way and they get it set in their head. So you're not really experiencing more. Once you get that, it's pretty much like how all four of us are trying to encourage people to become unstuck in our ways. Because when we get stuck in our ways, we're not really thinking. Our subconscious mind's just guiding us. Well, I mean, I know that when I'm in the car with my wife, she'll say, remember, we're going here, like take that exit, because most of the time we're going there and we don't take that exit. And
The
I'm not.
autopilot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely autopilot. Can I read Catherine's comment again? If you don't know who you are, then you can't know what you want. And if you don't know what you want, no process can help you get it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, we do that a lot. We put ourselves on autopilot without even thinking about it. That's the power of the human brain. I think everybody who has driven for any length of time will have experienced this. I used to live in a small town, and it was about 15 miles from the nearest medium-sized city where I used to go regularly. In fact, I had a business there as well. And the road that I took to go there was divided into three roughly 5-mile blocks. I would leave my house and go through the first 5 miles, and there would be a stop sign with a cross street that had right of way. Then I would go through that to the next stop sign about 5 miles further on, and I would stop, and then I would, give right of way and then go. And that took me to the stop sign at the end of that 15 miles roughly, which I made a left-hand turn into that other medium-sized city, where it was right there at that point. And I know many, many times I left my house and I got to that third stop sign and I thought, did I stop at those other two stop signs? Because I didn't remember a single thing that happened along that road. Didn't see the cows, didn't see the sunflowers, just drove on autopilot. And I never had an accident at either one of those stop signs. And there was a fair bit of traffic there. I must have stopped. But I don't recall when I got to the third stop sign, I would, whoa, wait a minute, I'm here already? And that's that subconscious mind controlling things, making things happen that you're not consciously thinking about. And that's just a small example in driving. We do that kind of thing in so much of our life. Did I actually read those 5 pages? I finished a chapter and I don't remember what I read. Those kinds of things. We do that in a variety of different things. And I put the whole cake mix together and it's in the oven. But did I?
Or you pick up your cup and you go to take a sip and it's empty and you think, but I'm the only one here. Where did my tea
My
go?
coffee go. Yeah, or my tea. Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, these are little realistic examples. They're real world examples. But so much of that goes on with our persona, with our choices, with our the decisions that we make, and all of the planning and goal setting and things that we do that are so important to moving forward, and yet we're often not conscious about it.
Yeah, I'm laughing because of Catherine's comment. She said, "Oh, you go to serve the crockpot dinner and realize you never turned on the crockpot."
Oh no, that's devastating.
Absolutely.
Steve, you got me wanting to say that that experimentation is a way to wake you up, that you investigate and analyze, examine these things that you're doing, which
Hmm.
is not part of that autopilot thing that goes on, because the autopilot just happens. But when you're doing an experiment, you have to pay attention. You have to wake up and see what's going
Yeah.
on in front of you with this particular habit or whatever it is you're changing.
And something you said, Cass, earlier that I wanted to come back to, you had mentioned about when you go through the experiment, you might realize, okay, this isn't what you wanted. So you thought this is what you wanted based on the discussion and the overall view, and then throughout the experiment you realize, okay, no, this isn't going to work, and so you make adjustments and you move on to something else, another experiment. And this is where I think a coach actually benefits a client hugely, because when that happens, there's what we call dissonance between what we think we want and what we actually want, and then we begin to question, is this what I really want? Or am I just being lazy? Or am I just allowing my anxiety to step in? Or am I just, and we look for all these situations and experiences that might make us feel like, hey, what we wanted originally is what we're supposed to want because that's what everybody else wants. And so if I don't want that, something is wrong with me, and all kinds of things can happen after that if we don't have a trusted guide to remind us, hey, this is your life. If you don't want it, you don't want it,
The
and so
most,
having that.
Yeah, and
mhm.
the
Yeah, the
truth
most
of that.
efficient way
Oh,
out.
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say the
I was just
truth
going to say the
of that.
most.
That's funny.
Now we're
Okay.
both waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the most efficient way out of the city may not be what you want. Maybe you want to see the cows, Yeah, but you
Hmm.
don't know that until you've done these experiments because nobody told you that that was an option. So you get to discover. Right, experimentation
Yeah,
allows you to discover new passions that can spark joy.
And to
yeah,
know that it's okay to
yeah.
be that way. It's okay to be different. It's okay not to want the most efficient way.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that a coach or a guide or a mentor can provide is the assurance and the permission. Not that the coach has some sort of authority to provide permission, just that they can make you aware that it is permissible. And so,
Mhm.
when you start and you're trapped in this rigid mold of what you think society thinks, and oftentimes we tend to think that the norm or what society thinks, we find out isn't what society thinks at all. Once we start
Yeah.
experimenting, we discover that there is actually a lot more going out there, than we thought. We didn't know there were cows along that road. We didn't know that road existed. So we never thought to look for cows. And so, it's there. And we do this all the time. We interpret what we think other people are thinking. And in most cases, they're not thinking that at all, especially if we're thinking that they're thinking about us. Oh, I better not do that because they will think bad of me.
Yeah.
No, they won't even think of you at all. They're too busy thinking about themselves and other people thinking bad of them. So
Yeah.
for the most part, that tends to be the way it happens to some degree. And when we realize that we can build a very positive self awareness through the outcomes of experimentation, we take that deeper insight into ourselves, and it then informs the way we think about other things. And experimentation in one area can tend to open up whole other areas to us that we haven't expected.
See, on that note, Steve, what was that one thing that you said about how when you think other people are thinking things that you think that they're thinking, and what was
A whole lot of thinking.
what can you know what
I'm not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. Think about that.
What I really love, something that I do and I've done for quite a long time, and it seems like a novel concept, because you're telling yourself a story about other people, what they're thinking, because you don't know. Why not tell yourself a great story about what they're thinking about you? You know, there's that person really, you know, shines, and they must have a really wonderful presence, and I bet that they have, you know, pets at home that love them. You know, I don't know what it is, but you tell yourself these stories all the time. So you get to choose to rewrite those stories rather than, oh, that person's awkward, or, oh, that person is doing a thing that other people don't do, or, you know, whatever those negative, not so positive things are.
Or even how they're
You
thinking
get to
about you.
choose.
Even how they're thinking about you. So that person is staring at me because they really like my blouse, you know, or they like
Exactly.
something, as opposed to, you know, she must be angry or he must be angry, and you know he's looking at me because I'm in his way. No, he's appreciating something. So and so I love that idea because I do it all the time too. You know, we tell ourselves the good stories. You know, there are good stories too.
Yeah,
Well,
it does happen.
Shelley Ann, you're saying that we tell ourselves the good stories, but most people tell themselves the bad stories. That was a
Oh,
great point that you brought up there, Cass.
yeah.
It's our choice. It's us that's making that story up. And from what Steve shared with us there about who we are and how we think other people are and how all that goes on in our mind, it's our mind. So it's our story. And it doesn't really matter what that person's thinking. It's the story we tell ourselves.
I worked with a client years ago, and they had a real problem when they came to me, and it was a life issue. And they said, you know, I'm just totally devastated. A longtime friend of mine has snubbed me, and I don't know why, and I don't know what I did, and I don't know how to deal with it. How, you know, so we talked about it, and I wanted them to tell me what happened. And they said, well, you know, my friend Carl was coming down the street. I saw him, and I kind of raised my head, ready to, you know, say hi to him. And he looked right at me, and he made a left turn and crossed the street and walked down the other side of the street. I didn't know what I had done. Had I offended him somewhere, you know, along the line, and he was snubbing me? And anyway, you know, it just built from there, and we didn't speak to each other, and it's been weeks, and I'm just devastated by it. Well, we looked into it, and I finally said, let's talk to Carl and find out what happened. You know, and well, could you do it? I don't know if I could face him. So I did. I went and introduced myself to Carl and took him out for a coffee, and we sat down and talked. And he said, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I said, well, several weeks ago, you were on such and such a street, and you know, Jake was walking towards you, and you looked right at him, and you turned and crossed the street and snubbed him. Oh, yeah, I remember walking there. I was on the wrong side of the street. I was following some instructions to get to a shop that my wife had sent me to pick up something that I had to take home. And I realized I was on the odd number side of the street, and this place was an even number. And I was looking ahead and looking at a piece of paper in my hand. And so I turned and crossed the street to get on the side where the store was, and I walked down the street looking at the stores. I never saw Jake. I didn't snub him. but I kind of wondered why he's been avoiding me. And that whole thing came out of nothing. But they had each responded to an actual situation, taking it in different ways. And it happens all the time. We do that. And that's where experimentation, instead of just jumping at the first answer, can make things work out better. And who knows? Anyway, we're coming up on our hour. Boy, did that go fast!
Yes, it did.
My goodness, we covered a huge amount of stuff, and it went so quickly. Once again, there is going to be a need to revisit this topic, along with so many others. We're never going to run out of topics. We just keep adding to our list.
Can I jump in, Steve, before you round us up, finish us up here? How many years ago was this, and did neither one of them have a telephone? I mean,
well, almost everybody had telephones, though they just didn't carry them around. They used to be hooked up to a wire,
But that just shows you, like how communication is key. I mean, if that was important to him, if that friendship was really important, why could they not have went and got him and asked him?
Yeah, exactly. See, that's the next step in experimentation, is go and see the person and experiment, by reaching out. That's the experiment. Simple, but basic. But, it's there.
Can I suggest, I know that I've been the one to suggest this that many times, so if somebody else wants to stomp on me, but I was going to take something from our commenter and wonder if we could use encouragement as our topic next week.
Love it.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yes. I vote for that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I encourage us to go for that one.
Oh, and I would love, I've been holding this. Yeah, we'll experiment with it. I've been holding it. Catherine made a comment that I thought was perfect for us to end with. So I was just waiting patiently for you to say, let's wrap it up.
Okay, let's wrap it up.
Are we going to go around to wrap it up, or
how about just you, because we're really out of time?
Okay, well then let me read the comment because I think it's a perfect end. She says, experimentation is just learning under a different label. It is how you learn you and lean into you. And if you aren't being you, then you are stealing a blessing from the world. And learning is the only way to grow into you.
Yeah, that's so awesome. It really sums up everything we talked about there, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, there's so much here, and we'll come back again next week and pick up where we left off. And we're going to be looking at encouragement. I think there's a whole lot of things we can talk about there. Coaches, mentors, and guides can definitely encourage their charges. Take it away.